Hi, Voices of the Bench community. I'm Laura Prosser, the digital marketing manager here for Ivoclar North America, and I would like to invite you to start following us on Instagram. It's your chance to obtain exclusive updates on product announcements, industry news, upcoming educational events, and heartwarming stories about our local team and industry professionals. So let's get social together. Simply start following us on Instagram at ivoclar.na. That's Instagram at ivoclar.na. We'll see you there.
Welcome to Voices from the Bench, a dental laboratory podcast. Send us an email at info@voicesfromthebench.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Greetings and welcome to episode 372 of Voices from the Bench. My name is Elvis.
My name is Friday Barbara.
So, Barb.
Yeah, I know. I thought you would like that.
When this airs, Mother's Day was yesterday. Are you a grandmother?
I don't know, but I might be. Like, it's day to day right now. He's due on Tuesday, but I don't know. So I don't know.
Oh.
You can create a meme from that, though.
We'll have to reconnect and re-record the whole episode to find out. We hope all goes well.
Well, thank you.
So I know that we announced, I don't know, was it last week that we were done playing Conversations from the Ivoclar Ballroom at Lab Day Chicago 2025?
Yes, that was last week.
I lied.
Oh, imagine that.
It's not that I forgot. I actually did it for a good reason.
Mm.
And this reason is because I got to have a great conversation with Mark Hidde, who's behind the website WINWINGO.
Nice.
Yeah, so you've been hearing these ads for a while, but the nice thing is I got to sit down and learn a lot more about Mark and what WINWINGO is setting out to do. And the reason we wanted to delay this is because Mark will be set up at Lab Day West this weekend.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
Yes, so if you're going to be at the Lab Day West show, and we're sorry that we're not going to be there. I really kind of wish we made plans because it looks amazing.
Yes.
Make sure you stop by and see Mark at the WINWINGO booth. But you see, Mark is also a lab owner, so he understands the pain of finding good technicians. He also knows that good technicians are trying to find good labs to work at.
Yeah, no doubt.
He also knows that life sometimes moves you into areas where you need to find good work at. And this is where WinWinGo.com gives you all that and more. And then we talked to Chris Nevarez, who helps offices and patients get all-on-4 treatment using, get this, medical insurance.
Nice.
Because for years I've been hearing how dental insurance doesn't cover these all-on-X things.
No doubt.
But he seems to have found a way for medical insurance.
That's fantastic.
So Chris started in the industry as a rep for Patterson and learned all the ins and outs of dentistry. When a change happened, he saw the potential in this all-on-4 treatment plan and also how medical insurance can help him make it more affordable to the people.
Nice.
He talks all about learning as a customer service rep, how he learned about medical insurance billing, and how he's trying to help clinics, and of course labs, do more cases. So join us as we chat with Mark Hidde and Chris Nevarez. Voices from the Bench. The interview. Technical difficulties aside.
Nice.
You know what? 35 minutes later, I'll take that for any sort of technical difficulties. Super excited today to be back in the Ivoclar Ballroom, LMT Lab Day Chicago, day 2, and we're all still here. Mark Hidde, how are you?
Yep, it's Mark Hidde.
Hidde?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
I've added so many L's to so many people's last name this weekend. That's hilarious. Hidde.
That's okay. Hidde, yep. And
Hidde.
I'm very much excited to be with you. And thank you very much for allowing me to come on your show, Elvis.
Absolutely. For those that have been paying attention, we've been playing an ad lately for something called WinWinGo. I'm super excited about this because a passion of mine is having labs find good technicians, but more importantly, having technicians find good labs.
Absolutely. So this idea is something that labs all over the country have been struggling with for a long time.
Tell me
finding
about
great talent. And we talked a little bit earlier. You can't grow your laboratory without finding great talent, and it's very difficult to find great talent.
Yep.
So it's like a doom loop, like we talked about a little bit earlier.
The doom loop.
You can't grow without good people, and you can't find good people. So we're all struggling. And I'm a lab owner myself. And
tell me about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So my father started the lab that I currently run back in 1970.
Oh, really? What's the name of the lab?
It back then it was called Rogue Valley Dental Arts.
Rogue Valley. Yeah.
Yep. And then my father ran that for many years up into the mid-90s, and was doing my own thing at that time. And
You weren't in the business.
I was not in the business.
No desire to be in the business?
Well,
how's that work?
Like a lot of kids, you're not that interested in what your parents do. And so moved away, went to school, dropped out of school, started my first business, and then my dad called me, in my early 20s and said, "Hey, I'm going to retire. Are you interested at all in the dental lab business?"
Yeah.
I thought about it for a while. It's I was living in San Diego at the time, kind of hard to move away from San Diego once you have your roots set a little bit there. But ultimately I did, came back up to Oregon.
How did he convince you?
It was more me understanding where I wanted to go in life.
Yeah.
I knew my dad had a good business, and it had a lot of growth potential. But like a lot of older lab owners at that time, he just did work with the older dentists that he knew.
You must have seen him work 18-hour days, weekends.
You know what?
That was a desire of yours?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. My dad was, he worked longer hours, yes, but he was very good at keeping it Monday through Friday.
Oh, there, good for him.
Yeah, and so that worked out well. And then ultimately, I purchased the lab from him, and that was in the late 90s.
Okay.
I've been running it ever since. This idea here with WINWINGO has been in the back of my mind for a number of years, and then I decided to take action on it about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And the idea really is the employment industry in our industry,
Sure.
in other words, the dental lab, dental technician industry has been largely ignored by most of the large employment sites. The Indeeds of the words and the monsters and the Zip recruiters. Indeed itself doesn't even have a dental category. So what we thought was, hey, can we build something that will connect laboratories with technicians around the country in a format that is much simpler and designed much better than the large employment sites? So I gathered together some people much smarter than myself, and we were able to kind of lay the groundwork for what we wanted to build. And then we assembled some software engineers, and then we basically started the project a year and a half ago. We're a year and a half into it now. We're not complete. I love for people to pop on and check out our site and even sign up, but the big thing I want everybody to know at this point is we are in a beta version, so you're going to find little bugs, you're going to find little things. So what I'm telling people is help us.
Oh, there you go.
If you're going to sign up and you're going to and you're going to become part of what we do, help us grow, help us iron out the issues. This, like I said, this is the beta version. In about 2 months, we should have most everything ironed out for a full-scale launch before Lab Day West.
Oh, nice.
So I'll throw it out there right now, Elvis. I'd love for you to set aside some time for me so we can talk again at Lab Day West.
Yeah.
And see how that plays out
100%.
because it'll give us a couple more months to really iron out a lot of the issues.
Very nice.
And then be able to present even at a higher level than we are now.
Nice. So did you start this because of your own struggles in the lab?
Absolutely. I've spent a lot of money with Indeed and ZipRecruiter, and to no avail.
Oh, you would spend money on Indeed, and you'd get, so many just worthless people. They're not worthless people, but they're not helping you.
Exactly. There's a lot of mismatches. And it, like I said, Indeed doesn't even have a dental category. So
dental at all?
Nope.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and so it's problematic. So, like I said, our industry's been largely ignored. I know we're not a huge industry, but I thought, if you're going to build something, go after the niche. Go after the specific issues that are ultimately holding us all back from growing our labs the way that we want to. And I know they're great technicians all over the country, and I know that they all have a difficult time finding where their ideal lab might be.
Sure.
And so this is just the best way. I'm trying to create a simplified system and a great website that looks nice, doesn't look so sterile like the other large employment sites, that connects labs with technicians all over the country.
So any lab can go on there and say, hey, I need these positions filled.
That's correct. And so
But doesn't every lab pretty much have every position available that they need people for? How do you handle that volume? I mean,
a lot of them do, absolutely.
I mean, I'd place an ad, just say, I'm looking for anybody that could do anything.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
That is absolutely okay. We've got all those categories in there of different specific positions, and you can literally click them all if you'd like to.
There you go, yeah.
And a lot of labs, that might be the thing. That kind of leads me to another thought. Most employment sites, people typically will post something for a while, spend a great deal of money, not get great results, and then turn it off.
Yeah.
Our approach to this is to be able to set up a pricing that is affordable, number one.
Yep.
Number two, affordable in a way that allows you to treat your talent acquisition like your marketing structure. In other words, never not be on. You're always looking for your next great talent.
Yeah.
You're always looking for your next, and being able to do it at a price point that is affordable for everybody.
Yep.
That's what we're after.
Okay.
And so we're after long-term relationships where you come on there, and then you place an ad, you outline exactly who you're looking for, and then you interact yourself. Once a week or so, you go on, you do fresh searches for new technicians, you reach out to them, you invite them to take a look at your lab profile.
Oh.
And lab profile is an interesting thing that we wanted to build. We wanted to build something where not only do you have images of your lab, but you have images of the area that you're in, the climate, the town, the culture. What culture is going on in your area.
Yeah.
As well as the laboratory, its pay and its benefits and that kind of thing. Because what you really want to do, us as technicians are very creative people.
Yeah.
To get someone to be interested in your lab, you have to get them to visualize what their life would be like there. So if you can paint a picture, and the dental laboratory profile itself is structured so it's more like a brochure for your lab and the area, town, climate, culture, everything.
That's interesting because it's one thing to be in Florida and get technicians to move to Florida.
Correct.
It's another thing to be in Indianapolis, Indiana, and try to get people to move to Indianapolis. But I bet you I could spin it in a way that would make it attractive.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You have to paint a picture.
Yeah.
It's my expectation that there are a lot of technicians that work, say, maybe you're in a large laboratory and you look around and you go, you know what, I'm better than everybody in this department, yet I feel like I'm just stuck here.
Yeah.
And maybe you have always wanted to be in the Pacific Northwest. Well, you can pop on the site and look for laboratories that are looking for people in the Pacific Northwest and go, oh, my goodness, look at this.
Interesting.
Let's start a conversation with this lab. And you can do that. And so, I still like to preface that with we're accumulating labs and technicians just starting now. It's probably the best way to put it. We are just brand new.
Yeah, I know.
So we don't have thousands of people on the site yet. But you know what? A year from now, my plan is to have thousands of people on this site.
I mean, why wouldn't you put your profile up there as a technician just to see what's out there?
Exactly. That's the idea.
I've always said a conversation never hurts.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah, it's a situation where, if we can improve the lives of technicians and lab owners by getting them in their ideal lifestyle, because it's not just about the job. We like to think it's just about the job, but with the right job in the right place, that's where you truly become happy.
Yeah, if you move across the country to get a job, you better know where you're moving to.
Absolutely.
Because you're only going to spend so much time at your job.
Yeah, yep. And if you've got great skills, you can command a really nice wage, and you can conduct the lifestyle that you truly want. So if you want to be in the mountains in Idaho, guess what? There's labs in Boise.
Mountains in Idaho?
Oh, gosh, yes.
I thought that was a flat state.
Parts of it are, yeah.
What about those technicians that are worried about posting in their lab that they're at, seeing them posting?
Yep.
A lot of people worry about that.
As they should.
Yeah.
There are certain laboratories that have, I don't want to say toxic environments, but maybe they are a little worrisome to some of the technicians. We looked at that very closely, and we developed something called incognito.
Ooh.
So you have the ability to switch on incognito mode in your edit profile setting.
Nice.
And that allows you to have your skill set there, some of the other particulars about you, but not your name, not your location, or any of that. So as a lab owner, the more we thought about incognito mode, which does a really good job of protecting technicians who don't necessarily want to be found out about. It might not be because you're in a bad lab. It might be because you're planning something a year down the road and you just don't want to ruffle any feathers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
that incognito mode will be great at being able to keep people and their information a little more private, but still be able to fish around out there.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about this as a lab owner, I thought to myself, you know what? If I'm searching for technicians, I kind of might want to start with incognito mode technicians first, because guess what? There's something they don't like about where they're at. Think about that.
Yeah.
You know, so they might be more apt to have a quick conversation.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where we think it's going to be, you know, better than just blindly posting who you are and what you want and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That way you don't end up ruffling any feathers where you're at.
How do you handle wages? So the lab post what they're willing to pay. Is it a range? Do technicians say, I don't even want to talk unless you offer me this much? Is that all part of it?
It is. And the site itself, the laboratories can post exactly how much they want to pay, the pay scale for the position that's being shown. But the interesting part about this is we put the power in the hands of the technician.
Nice.
This is part of the distortion that we have in the dental industry itself, where all of us need to grow, and it's so hard to find technicians. Well, what that does is that puts the demand on technicians and puts the power in their hands, right?
Yep.
So in the way that our site is structured, as a laboratory, when you have your profile set up and you find a technician, it's like, this might be a good fit. Guess what? You get to invite them to come and take a look at your profile.
Oh.
They can very easily accept or deny your invite, because maybe they don't want to talk to anybody in
Indiana.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
It puts the power in their hands. And that's
that.
what we really want to do, is we want to protect the futures of those technicians, give them the power they need to find their ideal lifestyle, and then also be able to give laboratories the ability to find them, communicate with them, and then and develop a relationship from that point.
Do you communicate through your website? Or do you just start exchanging phone numbers?
We absolutely do. We've got a message center that's set up in the website itself. It's got some tweaking that still needs to be done.
Sure.
But that's, when you start a software company, that is a big part of it. So our ultimate goal is to have it function just like you would on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like this. So it's very simple.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet, but we do. But the chat system on the site does work.
Nice.
And we're continuing to improve all the time. And the idea really is in about 2 months to have all of that ironed out right before what we would consider our full launch for Lab Day West.
Are technicians able to post pictures, videos maybe of their work?
They can.
Nice.
They can post pictures. They can post videos. There's a whole section where you can put a gallery set together.
Nice.
At this point, with the memory capacity that we have, we're limiting that to about 6 images, but that will be expanded probably a dozen or more at a certain point. So, you can show images of the different things that you do, the work that you do, or maybe it's just things you love. And, and that's a big part of it too. We get wrapped up in our industry, and we get wrapped up in our jobs and stuff like this. And sometimes we forget to just enjoy so much of what's going on outside of our job.
There's something outside.
There is. And well, for a lot of people, we forget about that.
Yeah, we do.
That's the life-work balance,
when you show up and it's dark and you leave when it's dark.
Yeah. My father did that for many years. And I never wanted to be that kind of technician myself. I've always been a morning person. So when the lab got real busy, I would just come in earlier and earlier so I could get out at 5 o'clock and go home, spend time with my family.
As a lab owner, how do you feel about technicians having this access to this? They might work for you, but they might want to go somewhere else.
It's a very interesting discussion. So the way that I approach this, and if a lab owner themselves is concerned that their people may be looking for something better somewhere else, then how about sitting down and having a discussion with them and saying, hey, are your needs being met? Are you happy here? Are there things that we can do to make you happier at the lab that we're at? So while this does create the ability for a technician to move around the country and find a lab that might be better for them, it also encourages laboratories to make sure their people are happy.
Yeah.
And
all on them.
Put some emphasis on that.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, then, why would you want to hang on to somebody that's not happy being with you?
Yeah. You mentioned a lot about, people moving around because of the work environment, but what I see is, we all have spouses that might have to move to another part of the country, and rather than Googling labs in this thing, are they hiring, you could go to this and say, my spouse or whatever is being relocated to this area, I want to find a lab to work at.
Absolutely. And I would expect a lot of that to happen. Most of us are with somebody, and if they get transferred, say you're a nurse and you get transferred to a new location,
Sure.
and you're a technician, the first thing you do is jump on WinWinGo and search for laboratories in that area that are currently hiring and open that conversation.
Yeah.
And it can happen very quickly. Yeah. And
they want you.
Yeah.
'Cause they're like, move now.
They want you, absolutely. And it's different than just putting a resume together and posting on something like Indeed and then sitting and waiting.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It actually allows you to be instrumental in your upward process with your career or just a relocation itself.
Yeah.
It allows you to do those kinds of things.
Yeah. So let's talk about for the labs, and you can get into specifics or not on pricing, but, big labs, this might be affordable. Small labs, is it still affordable? I mean, how do you scale that?
During the beta stage right now, everybody is free, which is
jump
wonderful.
on.
So
Everybody jump on.
Yeah, I'm asking everybody to sign up, and once again, look around and look for bugs and help us grow. Help us fix everything and put this all together in a way that benefits everybody.
Yeah, sure.
Now, in terms of pricing, we're going to keep this very reasonable. For laboratories, we were going to charge $299 a month.
That's not bad.
And it's like a car payment, really. And that circles me back around to the idea of picking a price level that allows people to sign up, put together your profile, and stay on forever.
Yeah.
And that may sound a little dramatic, but think about it this way. If you look at it the same way you do your marketing, you're consistently looking for that next great talent, and you don't want to miss them.
Yeah.
And that next great talent could pop up in a short period of time, find a location somewhere else, not knowing you were looking, and then move. And you just missed an opportunity to have one of those technicians that could be a key person in your team.
Yeah.
And
they just
so
didn't even know
the idea is to pinpoint a pricing structure that allows people to sign up, stay on, treat it like marketing, always look for your next great talent.
Yeah. I love that aspect of it, that it's just like one standard price for everybody, and you get one person out of that, and it's paid for itself.
Absolutely.
Tenfold.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that frustrated me the most before we decided to move ahead with this project is I could spend $2,000 on Indeed for a month of advertising,
so expensive.
not find anything. And this pricing structure, $2,000 will get you almost a year of being on there, searching for technicians, having discussions, finding people that will fit your lab.
But people that sign up, they need to be interactive. You need to go on it and have these conversations, right?
Exactly.
You can't just post and just sit back and hope that people start coming in your door.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, being active and doing it from an app that's right on your phone
or
right on your desktop
Yeah.
or right on your laptop. It makes it simple and easy. And we're going to encourage people to, like you were saying, be active, but also add and change things on your profile. If you've had the same pictures and images and things on there for a while, switch it up. Change it up. Switch to a new season. Put some images of what it's like for snow and different things like this during the winter.
Clean up your lab before you take a picture. Come on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, and then, of course, there's spots for inside your lab, images inside, outside, and what it looks like, and that kind of thing. So
You talk a lot about area. Is there a way to link to like average home sales, average home prices, school systems, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you're hitting on something that's really good here. What we're going to incorporate on the site when we add those features will be, well, I'll throw this one out. There's a website called Livability.
Yeah.
Livability is great because it allows you to see what's going on in the area and learn more about the area that you're possibly moving into. And that would be another layer of information that would be good for a technician, right? So we're going to have a section on the site. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're going to have a section on the site that gives people more tools and more information.
Yeah.
And links to sites like Livability is going to be part of it.
Talk about crime in the area, that kind of thing. I mean, it's all things you think about when you make a big move.
Absolutely. Crime, schools, average home prices, those kinds of things. So, we'll be linking to a number of different things on there that allow people to build an image in their mind, but understand what's going on in the area and see if it fits them.
Sure. That's great. Why'd you choose WinWinGo? How did you come up with that?
Well, it just seemed to make sense, right? If it's a win for the technician and it's a win for the laboratory, then you make a move.
There you go.
And we wanted something that was easy to remember.
Yep.
And we wanted something that related very closely to the process of the company itself. So when you do some thinking about naming a company, my mind always goes to how is that name linked to what you truly want to do with the company itself. And I looked around at a lot of the big employment sites, and you look at Indeed, you look at ZipRecruiter, and you look at Monster. Those don't really help you as far as a name goes to understand
when
what
I first
they do.
heard Monster, I was like, what is that?
And yet they've been extraordinarily successful.
Yeah.
The least profitable one out of the three is a $2 billion a year company. And yet, once again, our industry is almost completely ignored.
It really is.
And so I just thought, when I put this together, I thought, this is a wonderful way for us to be able to make a splash in our industry, even though it's small and it's very niche.
Yeah.
But this is the perfect place for us to start. It's the perfect place for us to do our best to solve this issue between labs and technicians.
I think it's a great thing you're doing, Mark.
Thank you.
I love WINWINGO. I love the idea of it. I mean, I started this whole thing, and I'm very passionate about labs finding good homes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You going to offer doctors looking for a lab tech?
Well, we did do some thinking about what we want to do down the road, and we're certainly open to that because they have a similar distortion in their industry where they can't find enough hygienists, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
They're not graduating enough hygienists.
Every study club I'm at, that's all they complain about.
Yeah.
So are we going to talk about anything else?
They have a similar issue to us. Very difficult to find hygienists. They're not graduating them from school fast enough to fill all the spots.
Yeah.
So it's similar to technicians where the schools are closing, so the ones that are out there that have great talent are extremely valuable. So we will plan on moving in that direction. I would think for us the smartest thing at this point would be to really dial in that relationship between the labs and the technicians and see how many connections we can make, and then move into the related industry, right? So inviting all of the manufacturers that are in our industry to then have a section within the site where they can look for great technical people to join their force.
Oh, there's some good jobs out there for some technicians with these companies.
There really is. And then from there, if we've done the right job there and we have not made a lot of mistakes in how we structure things, then we make the leap over to dentists and hygienists and dentist staff. And
I think dentists looking for technicians, you should jump on right away. I see a lot online about doctors like, hey, I'm looking for good technicians. They're posting in the dental technician group. I really believe that a technician working directly under a doctor is a wonderful career move because you get to see things in the mouth. It's just, I know a lot of people that are in that in-office lab.
Yeah.
They have great careers. They're really loving what they're doing. I think you should open that up quicker than later.
That's a great angle. It absolutely is. And there are so
and then
many.
Charge dentists double.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If not more.
Yeah.
No, that's a wonderful idea also. And that's the interesting part about starting a company like this is you want to stay so focused on your niche, and then ideas keep coming at you.
Sorry.
And you're like, okay, that's a great idea. Let's revisit this in a year and a half. And then that's kind of how that goes. But I love that, and that's a great suggestion. I didn't stop to think so much about in-house technicians and dentists wanting to find them, but this is
a
kind of the
aspect.
It's definitely a crossover there that might work out really well.
Yeah,
so we'll give we'll give that some thought.
Mark, thanks so much, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks for supporting the podcast.
You
love
bet.
what you're doing. Keep win-win going.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mark.
Elvis, you're the best.
I
appreciate you being
it.
on, and I am definitely going to hit you up before we go to Lab Day West.
I
see if
love
we can talk again. I'll give you an update.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up. Thank you, sir.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank
have
you
a good
so
one.
much, Elvis.
Yep. Bye.
Barb and I are excited today to welcome a gentleman that I think I met on Facebook because you have your own All on 4 group.
Nice.
That's pretty active. That's got a lot of chatter. And Barb, you know me. I love my implants and my full arch. But let's welcome to the podcast Chris Nevarez.
Hello.
Did I say it right?
Nevarez. You did, Nevarez. That sounds perfectly put.
My job here is done.
You are done. I could throw the Spanish side of it. It's Nevarez.
Nevarez? I like that.
Nevarez. But I always use Nevarez. I grew up in Campbell, California.
Nice. So, Chris, we always like to find out how people end up in our crazy world of dental. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So we're going to go way back there then.
Yeah.
We're going to go back from we're going to start from the beginning. Let's go back to the year 2000 and let's go back to the year 2000.
Yeah.
That's when I started at Patterson. Back in 2000, depending on how old you are, when you were looking for a job, and I was looking for a job at the time, I was working for a courier who did vital storage for these big tech companies. So I live in the Silicon Valley. I now live in the Monterey Bay area, but I grew up and I lived and worked in the Silicon Valley in Santa Clara, in the South Bay, they call it. So I answered an ad there for a warehouse worker for Patterson. And I don't know if anybody knows anything about dental dealers. You probably do, but way back then you had to, dental dealers filled their own orders and then they had them either shipped or delivered by the territory reps. When I joined Patterson, the warehouse was being absorbed and they were going to distribution centers. And so they were cutting that back. When I answered the ad, though, I showed up for my interview to be a warehouse worker. But now, as a courier, I always had to work with the front desk girls because I picked up the tapes right at the front desk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was very well versed with the front desk people, receptionists for the most part. So when I gave the interview, who was the vice manager at the time, he said, "So you talk to girls all day?" I said, "Yeah, I spoke specifically to girls all day long because I picked up tapes and then I returned tapes that they had because they were back then they used microfiche or they used these digital tapes that they would turn over and they had all their vital storage on it. They stored it at our facility. Anyways, that was what I used to do, and I told him yes, and he said, we need a customer service because they were hiring for customer service. They were adding 2 more customer service people, and that's when they said, "Would you like to work as a dental customer service person?" And again, I'm not sure what you know about dental dealers, but customer service people were basically phone operators, but they also supported a couple of reps in the field. And so that's what I said, and it paid $5 more an hour. So I said, heck yeah. So interview, I immediately went from warehouse worker to customer service and a $5 raise immediately. So that was my starting point. As a customer service rep, I worked for a year. I loved that job. It was just coming from blue collar jobs where you had to work 12-hour days to make any money at all at the end of the week.
It's physical too, yeah.
The microfiche film, these are huge buckets I had to move, and I worked in the financial. I came from Santa Clara all the way to San Francisco and back, and you were judged on how fast you could do your stop. So it was a really stressful, hard job, and you had to be safe. You know what I'm saying? Those tapes were very, very important. Yeah. So I drove these trucks. I drove these bobtail trucks. Going to customer service was like a resort, like going from a sweatshop to working at a resort. You know what I'm saying? So that was a great push change. The thing was, though, again, they were moving the dynamic, the shipping and the logistics dynamic for Patterson was changing. It was being more modeled to mirror Sullivan Shine. Sullivan Shine, now Henry Schein, was their prime competitor, and Shine had just gone to distribution the year before, so Patterson was trying to match them to be competitive as a logistics because first of all, they were getting very busy. Dentistry just took off. Digital dentistry, for the most part, took off. When I started at Patterson in 2000, 2001, digital dentistry and CEREC dentistry, same-day dentistry, was it was an infant. It was right out of the box.
Yeah.
So sensors and all that other jazz was still like in its infancy. The software was very, very iffy, and there were a few universal softwares you could use, but all of them had glitches, and you really had to know your stuff when you were selling a doctor a package that could integrate in their office. And what I found was not only because I was a sundries customer service person, and I found that to be that was rewarding. It was easy to understand and learn all the products. Now, catalog's thick, there's a lot of stuff, but for the most part, you learn the first 6 months I learned. Because when a rep would go out and visit a client, they would pick up their credits. So if you sent a doctor a box of, say, 2x4s or 4x4s, gauze, and it wasn't double ply, it was single ply, typically that product was returned because they had to have this exact gauze they like, which was double ply 4x4s. Those are the same ones. Same thing for cotton applicators. They had to be the 6-inch applicators, nothing else. You send them a 3-inch or a 4-inch applicator, you know that was coming out. So I learned early on that when I processed credits, I made note of a lot of the most common products that were returned. Because if you know the products that are returned, and you know what was sent in its stead, then you quickly learn what is most common and what's not. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's like putting the piece of the puzzles together. So I learned that very early is what people, and that never changes. I mean, for day in and day out, right now, there's orders of cotton swabs and cotton tip applicators and all that stuff that dentists use. There's tons of it going out right now. The only thing is now the online companies, the internet companies that are doing it have taken a big chunk from both Patterson,
Amazon,
from both Patterson. Yeah. Even Amazon's selling it now. So Patterson and Shine are both seeing big hits in their consumables, and the consumables money from 2001 through 2015 was a moneymaker for them for all the big, which is Shine, Burkhart, Benko, Patterson, and I'm probably leaving one or two out, but those are the big. Those are the big four that were making just hand over fist with consumables. But what it did mostly though is got their foot in the door for digital. And when my first year for review came up, in the interim of doing customer service, I'm not sure if you know this, but dealers would sponsor tables at general monthly meetings for dentists. All dental societies have general monthly meetings. I think they take a hiatus for Christmas and summer. And so the big dealers would typically put a table at those meetings, and somebody would have to bring catalogs and a table skirt and bring pens and all that tchotchke stuff that you would give away.
Those were the days. Yeah.
You know, they're still there. They're still doing this. I mean, if you want to get a table, I'll be honest, if you wanted to get a table for whatever it is you sell, you could easily do it by contacting your local dental society. They still do it to this day. And matter of fact, I have a running account with the Santa Clara and San Mateo dental societies. I haven't done it in over a year because, first of all, my year last year was really busy. But that being said, I believe they start their year this month or next month. I forget. I think it's this month they start their year, and they do it every month on a Thursday or a Friday, et cetera. But I'm just saying, if you guys or anybody who's selling any product, whatever it may be, can always get a table. They cost about $300. And you can always send somebody to do that. Well, at Patterson, we had a running table at the Santa Clara Dental Society. And back then, they didn't have a big hall. The Dental Society didn't have a big hall. They would have them at hotels. And so I would go to these different hotels around the area. I would volunteer to do it because oftentimes on a Thursday night, it was either the branch manager or the vice manager that had to go if no rep wanted to do it. Now, as a rep, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be sitting at that table.
Oh, 100%.
Because if that's your,
no doubt.
If that's your territory, then you're going to talk to dentists and you're going to talk to spouses and you're going to talk to office managers and you're probably going to talk to assistants, et cetera, because they all come to those for the dinner and drinks, because it's a schmooze fest. And so I volunteered all the time. If they couldn't find somebody to do it, unless it was a really good topic like digital or something like that, typically, and the dental societies pick the topic, what the topics are, who the speakers are. And unless it's a really popular speaker, then you know what your clientele is going to be. But typically it could be anything. It could be on radiation. It could be on bloodborne pathogens for sterilization. But it runs the gamut. Whatever you think, if you open a catalog and look end to end, you'll know the topic could be vast. So now Gordon Christensen every year still does a meeting at about, I would say, 20 dental societies around the country. And then he gives his take on, nowadays he's given his take on pretty much everything, mainly because the dynamic has switched to all on because that's where the money is right now, is the all on X is the highest hourly production treatment plan you can propose. And so that being said, when I went to these meetings, I got a reputation for going to them. I started to learn the doctor's name. So when they called in to place an order, they would know who I am. They would know my face. And so I got very popular that way. Because it's so, when you work for a company and you can put a name with a face, And a lot of these people who I met at these meetings, they needed something. A sterilizer was broken or something. So I would take notes and make sure we followed up the next day with them. Or maybe they needed to order something and I would place the order for them, et cetera, et cetera. I would follow up. And that being said, my review came up the following year, and they always ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? That's the standard review question, I think, at the end.
Yeah.
What's your 5-year goal? What's your 10-year goal? Yada, yada. And, I put in that customer service rep. I could see myself doing this forever. And I told my branch manager that. And my branch manager at the time, and I don't know if you know who it is, but it was Scott Anderson, who became the president of Patterson Dental subsequently.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, wow.
Subsequently, yeah. So he worked in the Bay Area. He was the branch manager at the time, but he transitioned out right after my review, and then a new branch manager came in. But when he interviewed me for it, he said, Chris, I've been hearing great things about you. You're always on time. You always do what you say. Customers love it. You make very few mistakes. You're like totally on it. You're the type of person Patterson likes. And you have no trouble talking to doctors. You're very knowledgeable with the products we sell, etc. He said, so I know you say 5 years plan you want to stay as a customer service rep. We'd like to put you as a territory rep.
Yeah, there you go.
Great.
He said, but you would be a scratch territory rep and you would be going out and stuff. He said, now typically you need a college degree. I know you don't, because I didn't have a college degree. I dropped out in my second year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's typically a mandatory, but I can override that because of your knowledge and your experience and your just love for the business. He said, so if you could totally take a huge leap in going out to do this. And I said, respectfully, Scott, love the opportunity, love the offer, but I honestly love doing what I do. It's so Friday comes and you leave at 5:00 and Monday is going to be a piece of cake. You're never worried about, most people worry about Monday,
Oh, yeah.
In dental, I've never worried once about a Monday being weird. Now, they can be busy. They can be whatever you want to call them, but I've never had them be where people are yelling at you. You know what I'm saying?
I feel the same way. Yes.
As long as he said, if you do what you say you're going to do and do it,
Yep.
that is 9/10 of the job. Pretty much for any job, I think. But for dental, it's really important because when you're dealing with patients, you're dealing with a schedule and you're dealing with time that you can't go back in time. So anyways, jump ahead. He said, keep the review sheet, think about it and rewrite it and let me know. Come back on Monday. So on Monday, I came back. I told him again, I'm not interested. And then he said, the typical scratch, a 2-year rep makes $120,000 a year. Did you know that? A part of it. And that I did not know. Honestly, I didn't know that the standard rep made that kind of money. And I was like, really? He said, yeah, your first 2 years we start you at 60 plus expenses. That's typically the salary for a scratch territory rep, just going out. Now, by the second year, you got to be matching that or above in order to stay profitable and in order to stay pertinent to the company. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So they said by year 2, you can make 100. And that right there alone, I'll be honest. I mean, I grew up in a very, very, I had 6 brothers and sisters, single mom.
Oh,
I think anybody who's ever had a single mom and had multiple brothers and sisters knows a few things, like Christmases are not easy and birthdays are never what you see on TV. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
very profound. Yes.
Right. And so immediately I said, okay, you know what? You just changed my mind, because that somebody who would turn that down, and I believe I can do this. The only problem was I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't know what a scratch territory rep was. And what a scratch territory rep is you're going into offices of your competitors and trying to steal them away.
Oh, they have a name for that?
Yeah, it's called a scratch rep. And I didn't know that at the time. And so for my first 6 months was brutal. I think I quit like 25 times in my head.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll be honest, I'm thin-skinned. I'm everything you hear right now, Elvis. If you ever meet me, anything you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all heart. I'll take the shirt right off my back and literally give it to you if you need it. And I'll give you $20 to go to a local Kohl's to get the pants. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
oh yeah,
I'm that kind of person, and I'm a single parent now, so I can see how hard it is for people. And so anyways, that happened. I went out in the field. First 6 months, first year was tough. But the second part of that 6 months, what I noticed was all the breakdowns in the dental dealer business, because there's a lot of gaps that the dental dealer business has. Most of it has to do with the handoff, because as a territory rep, you sold half of your commissions were from sundries, from reoccurring sales,
Sure,
and the other half was from equipment sales. And so, and you split that sale with your equipment rep. And so the equipment reps were well paid. They had a stable, if you will, of territory reps that they took care of. And so the equipment guys, I gave them the leads, and then they would follow up and close, and then they would take care of all the other stuff. But what I noticed was, if you were just doing a 2-sensor conversion for software and converting an office over, if it's not over 150,000, I always noticed that the ball would get dropped. So for a standard conversion for software, where you take whatever software they're using, most of them were using old style of SoftDent.
yeah.
And so SoftDent was really antiquated software. And so to use digital, you needed to have a digital module, and it had to integrate with your charting, et cetera, et cetera. And so to do that, anybody who wanted to go digital had to convert to digital. Now, what I noticed was a lot of that is hand-holding, and equipment reps are not very good at that. They never were. They never will be. Everything is based on a dollar amount of the sale. If it goes over 150,000, then they can bring in a lot of resources to help them. They can get trainers. They can get multiple people. Patterson will give them the resources. But for under 50 grand, the ball just got dropped hundreds of times. And I would see sales. I would see a sale that I made or that my equipment guy made. I would bring the lead to my salesperson. And then 2 months later, I would notice that they're installing Dentrix and they're putting DEXA sensors in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I brought this lead to my equipment guy, and either he dropped the ball or maybe he didn't sharpen his pencil enough. I don't know. But the point being is, the last 6 months of that first year, I noticed that if I could propose it through the software, which I learned to do myself, in other words, write up the order.
Yep.
Walk where the equipment had to go, because it wasn't just sensors. I sold everything. I sold sterilizers, wall X-rays, chairs, lights, dental units, etc. And at the same time, CEREC was coming out as well. So that was a big ticket item. Again, all those big ticket items had to have a lot of hand holding, and you had to make sure you followed it through. So what I did was, I told my guy, hey, look, because they always see a lot of what the equipment guys are working on is either government contracts or group practice sales, or they're doing the offices are opening multiple places. For instance, Cool Smiles and other chains were opening up, and so if you got that contract, you were doing a lot of offices. And so the territory rep who was just dealing with the private practice, 1 or 2 clinician offices, we got left behind. If you know what I'm saying, I don't know if I can kind of communicate exactly how hard it was to make sure that everything got done for them. So I noticed that. I told my guy, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we set a $50,000 line and or more, and I will make sure that it's proposed. I will make sure that he has the funding or she has the funding for it. I will make sure it's walked, because I can work directly with the technicians. And I will make sure that everything goes through, it's funded, and it's installed. I'll work with the scheduling to get it installed. I'll do everything. You don't have to do a thing. And so he loved that, because I was the one territory rep probably in the entire Western region who did that. Now, there were other reps who did that as well, but I was one of about 3 or 4 who knew that ball was getting dropped. And I'll be honest, it's probably still getting dropped today. But what I learned was that you had to be very, very diligent. And that was where I started growing my reputation in the area. And so I started to do very, very well. The last 6 months, I sold more CERECs, more digital than even the veteran reps who had multiple accounts. And so, the veteran reps, we're talking 10-year reps who have many, many accounts, where for them, they don't even have to sell it. All they have to do is just take the call and give it to their guy. And that's where another thing I should explain is, the equipment guys would give all their attention to the veteran reps because the leads that they got were always $100,000, $200,000, or $300,000 sales. You know what I'm saying? They never called with anything less than that. And they knew it was going to be multiple offices. So they really took an interest and they really paid a lot more attention to those reps, those veteran reps. And they still do today, I'm sure, than the younger reps, the 1, 2, 5-year reps. You know, these guys or gals, they were on our own to fend for themselves. And so mainly your biggest cheerleader at that stage was the branch manager. And the branch manager, it's a store in the dental dealer business. It's a store that you have to grow. And so he has to watch everything. He has to watch all the plates that are moving. So in a way, being a long story, I sold very well. I followed it through and I learned that was how you do dental sales. I learned that if you just follow it through, if you don't leave any gaps, if the transition from one person to the next is clean, and at the end of the road, you're there to shake the person's hand and say, okay, let's talk about how to use it, maintain it, etc. Knowing that you got to be there every 2 weeks, because remember, territory reps have to come on a schedule. And so oftentimes the equipment guys, they were bunnies. They would hop from one hole to another. And so they had very little skin in the game. You know what I'm saying? And they never had any face-to-face contact. So that was another thing that I felt was really, really difficult to manage. So that's what I did.
So obviously you're still not with Patterson. So what'd you do?
I'm sorry, 2015, Patterson had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, so we bumped up to 2015. So yeah, where's the transition?
So that's where the transition is. 2015, a few things happened. Patterson, Shine, Benco, and Burkhart, but Burkhart settled. They were all sued by a group of doctors for price fixing. It was a class action lawsuit. And as soon as that happened, I was going through a transition in my life with my ex-wife, and it made it that much easier to leave, because how do you walk into an office to a doctor who has this Google feed or even a dental periodical on his desk that says this? How do you look him in the eye and say, I'm not price fixing? So I knew right then and there that my reputation was going to be damaged. Now, you know, the transition for that went really smooth. They kept it under the radar.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was going through a big change in my life. Now, knowing what I know, how Patterson does their stuff, I didn't see a problem ever with how we did our business. I always thought we did everything above the board. What I did not know was that they were in cahoots. The main thing was I didn't know what I did not know.
Sure.
At the time when I was transitioning, I was looking for a job. I had a job offer from Hidde.
Yeah.
So I had an offer from them to be a rep for them in California, and they rescinded the offer immediately. They said, sorry, we don't need it. I was okay with that, though. Here's the thing. I immediately knew that there was a niche out there for 3D upgrades, which I love. I love 3D x-rays. I sold a ton of them. I sold against every 3D x-ray, and I sold for every 3D x-ray company. So I knew the pluses and minuses for both. So I'm very well versed in that, and that's what gave me my start, was helping doctors transition to 3D dentistry for what else? Full arch dentistry.
Sure.
Because I learned then two things. I learned that the all-on-4 game was on. That was what was taking off at that time.
When you say you learned that, how did you figure that out so quickly ahead of the curve?
Because every doctor, every GP I was selling x-rays to was looking to do full mouth rehabs.
Aha. Okay.
And not only that, but you know, when you buy a 3D x-ray, it's not just full arches that you can do. If you want to do endo, there's nothing better than a 3D x-ray.
Yeah.
Because you don't miss those canals that you would normally miss when you're freehanding it. So when they were doing that, GPs were switching to multi-specialty, I should say. So switching to a multi-specialty office means a whole bunch of pluses, Elvis. It means that you want to keep a lot of your stuff in-house, which I'm sure there was a transition there. And I think there's been a transition with 3D dentistry for the last 20 years with labs and doctors. There's been a big in-house transition where a lot of the work they used to send out, they keep in-house, but they still need digital labs for full mouth rehabs because nobody else can do the work that they can unless you're going to pay an in-house technician who has 20 years or more worth of experience, you're much better off going with a digital lab. They have 1 day or 2 day turnaround. Typically, you can get all the same advantages from an outside digital lab as you can from an inside digital lab, and the quality is much better. I mean, I won't say much better. The quality can be better because a lot of the stuff that in-house labs, they lack a lot of the components that outside digital labs have. Because you guys invest in everything. I mean, you guys can do multiple everything. You guys, and you have a quality control people. There's just a lot of things, and I learned that about the digital labs as well. Because as a territory rep, when you get a list of clients, I also got a list of labs, and most of my labs were the labs who did in-house CEREC. And so these were the labs who were buying blocks and dongles for CEREC, for their, and I'm trying to think of the name of the in-lab. I think it's called in-lab, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of my mentors told me, if you want to learn everything you can about dental, I would go spend any free time you have during the day instead of going home, because you could see 20 counts, from 8 to 10 and you could be done.
Yeah, if you really tried.
You can't. I know you really can. You can. Well, first of all, if you get a building with 8 or 9 doctors in one building, that's like in and out in 20 minutes,
Sure.
But so my mentor said, instead of going home after you hit your quota, you should go spend that time with a lab, with a CEREC lab, because these are the guys who know they know what's coming. They know what's coming, and they know where the industry is going. And so I did just that. I went to a lab and I sat for hours with these guys. I would bring them lunch. I would bring them coffee. That's where I learned some of the challenges that go on between labs and doctors. I know you know what those are. They'll send a lab a completely ugly impression and say, oh, just fill in where the voids are, what you think is best. Or they'll say, just use your best judgment on this. And then they expect a lab to make this ugly impression into a beautiful restoration. And I often saw those, and this guy was cool. He would call the doctor, and he would say, hey, look, I just got an impression. This impression is terrible. The doctor tried to talk him into doing it, and he would say, look, if I do it, you're going to waste a full day in that chair. You're going to have to reschedule that patient. You're going to give away a whole day of chair time if I do that. Because if this guy or gal doesn't like what they see or doesn't fit right, they're going to be calling you 20 minutes later, and then what are you going to do? And so he would typically say, talk the doctor out of trying to talk him into doing it. Send me a picture of the patient's smile. And so that was the one thing he required, was that the doctor send them that. So anyways, that's where I learned a lot of the inside information about doctors and labs, and also how patients react, because patients are consumers who either, if they didn't work with the doctor for a long time, they will always give the doctor benefit of the doubt, and they'll give them a free pass on whatever it is. That's the one thing I learned about dental patients. Now, if the dental patient was talked into a restoration or dental work, and then it comes out like that, then you have a totally irate patient, because they didn't want to spend they don't want to spend $2,000 to begin with, and now you have a restoration or whatever that is not fitting right, doesn't feel right, doesn't even look right, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I learned how patients, there's that two dynamic patient. There's the one patient who will always give the doctor the benefit of the doubt. Typically, you don't get that for nothing. You have to earn that. And to earn that, you have to do what you say, just like we were talking about initially. And so that being said, I learned a lot about patients. So if we fast forward to now, I learned that full mouth rehabs were taking off at that time. I also learned a lot about medical billing. And the reason I found out about medical billing was because my mom needed some implants. She was on Medicare, and she needed implants from 8 to 11. And she was a grinder, and she had erosion. And now I'm still just working paycheck to paycheck, I was scrapping because I'm an independent. So I would scrap
and I'm still scrapping, but the point is my mom needed those. And so my mom was taking a biophosphate medication called Fosamax. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not, no.
So Fosamax is a Merck product, one of their number 2 medications in the world globally. It's for people with osteoporosis.
Okay.
But what it does is it causes necrosis of the jaw.
Oh.
And so at the time, medical knew this. And if you did it right, if you got a referral from a referring doctor, medical doctor, for an exam, and they found you needed work because of it, they could determine, Medicare could determine that could be the causing factor for the failure of your teeth.
Yeah.
So that meant they had to cover it.
Yep.
And so I knew all of this about medical was because in 2013, I was at a convention in Anaheim, and we had a meeting with Pacific Dental and other big companies that were talking about taking the private practice market, that they were going to convert the private practice market for themselves, and they were just going to go crazy with it. And if you check the numbers back in 2012, 13, those companies like Pacific and other Heartland and other big companies, you'll notice that those DSOs have grown by about 50%. They went from 11%, they're at about 65%.
I totally agree. Yep.
So one of the things they told us, they told their partners, because they told Patterson and Shine that we need you guys because we're going to do all our ordering by aggregate, meaning they're going to combine their orders together. So when they order as a company, they're going to do everything out of one account so that they could order multiple products and get a better price for it. So aggregate purchasing was one thing that they were doing. And Patterson was like, no problem. That also meant if they wanted to buy 10 Cerex, that they would get a great aggregate deal on that as well. Mm-hmm. So that was where the dealer came in. Now, there were 4 other ways that they were also changing, and that was they were doing cell phone or tablet communications with their patients.
Yeah.
Everything was going to be done by cell phone because they know that's the way to communicate with your patient. So recalls and all that stuff was going to be done via the cell phone. So they were going to take that. They were also going to look at boomers who were retiring, and they were going to acquire those practices, and they were going to pay those boomers whatever they asked for as long as they could see the potential growth. If the office didn't have a CEREC or a 3D machine and they had 12 or 2,000 patients who were potential customers who could convert, and a doctor wanted $1 million, they would give them $1 million, even if it was only worth 700,000, because every one of those practices that they converted, they saw that $1 million the following year to date. Because the first thing they do is they add medical billing, they add 3D dentistry, and they add same day dentistry. Yeah. So that was how they were going to do it. A couple other ways, I'm not looking at my chart, but a couple other ways they were going to do it as well that they've done. And again, all of these factors played into how they were able to get the liquid to capture that 50% of private practices. And they're still doing it today.
Crazy.
So when I learned about medical billing from them, I learned that it was an option, but you had to follow the rules.
Oh, yeah.
You had to have a physician who could get the patient a referral. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing. Many dentists who've tried medical billing, and even if they go through third party, it's often the biggest killer for the claim is not having a physician's referral, because now once you get a physician's referral, because everything's done electronically, a pre-auth is automatically generated. And it's not so much the referral that you need as much as the pre-auth. Now, for me, whenever I train an office, I always say, just take Blue Cross PPOs and just do 3D X-ray exams, because 3D X-ray exams will pay $1,000 for the exam and the X-ray from Blue Cross. And if they pay that, they'll pay it at a percentage, typically at about 80%. If they pay that in about 2 weeks or less, then you got a pre-auth that's going to cover anything, any diagnostic work that you have to do. Because just like the doctor who did my knee, when he looked at my knee, he also noticed my hip was bad, and potentially because my hip was in that X-ray, he could down the road fix that.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because anything that you can see, any anomalies you can see on an X-ray, with that pre-auth, you can treatment plan and bill for it. Now, one of the things I found with medical billing, because I've been doing it for 7 years now, or I'm sorry, for 9 years now, 7, is that as long as you get the correct referral, because so many doctors who've tried medical billing and failed, not only did they not get the referrals prior to the treatment, but they don't get the right referral. Now, for my mom, it was biophosphates. They've now excluded that because doctors now should know that biophosphates, you shouldn't be doing treatment planning anybody who's been on biophosphates for more than 6 months, because the chance of those implants failing is high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And so that being said, they no longer cover that. But if you get a referral for sleep brucks, which is a TMJ issue, you're able to, if you get a TMJ referral and you don't have any other secondary diagnoses, when the patient gets into that room for the exam and the doctor who examines the patient with TMJ and sleep brucks, legitimately, you can tie erosion, periodontal disease, root fractures. You can tie 100 different problems that sleep brucks can cause. And because you got the referral for sleep brucks, any anomalies it's caused, you can treat. And so sleep brucks gives the doctor a wide platform to treatment plan for and get paid for. And so I found that when most doctors tried to use medical billing, they would try to use it on and I did the same thing. I would try to do it for diabetes patients. I would try to do it patients with Sjogren's or some other genetic type of disease. For sure, periodisease is covered primarily because of its correlation to heart disease. If you diagnose a patient with sleep brucks and you find the patient has erosion, periodontal disease, and let's say one more, patient has diabetes, then that patient is a perfect candidate for implants. Or if you got a patient who's missing multiple teeth, or a patient who has alveolar atrophy, meaning they've had missing patients, denture patients are prime patients for that. And just so you know, sleep brucks just because you don't have teeth doesn't mean you don't sleep brucks.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Your body still tries to grind no matter what. And so that being said, that's the nature of the beast with that. And again, if you get a good referral for sleep brucks, then you're able to treatment plan everything. I always say if you start out with Blue Cross and you start out just doing exams, then what you're able to do is acquire a lot of the information that you need from the providers, meaning you can get the fee schedules once you become a certified provider. Another great thing, once you become a certified provider, is you can look in the patient's history and you can communicate with the patient's primary or specialists for any gaps you see in your treatment planning. So, and also one other thing that's often left off is medications. Patients don't always list all their medications, but if you become a certified provider, once you become a certified provider, and you can do that once you get that referral and the pre-auth, you can immediately sign up as a certified provider and you can access all the patient's information, including medical prescriptions.
So it sounds like to me, what's interesting is when a lab's working with an office and that office maybe is struggling to get patients to close on all on four, you can talk to the office about getting into medical billing, I guess, because it seems like it opens up a lot of pathways to make it more affordable for the patient.
Yeah, for sure.
100% more, 100%. But here's the problem that I see for just about anybody. The problem is that if you're going to walk into an office for a full mouth rehab, you got to have $15,000 in the bank, because you still have to pay for the finals, because the finals are cosmetic and it's not covered. Now, medical insurance could very easily cover the $30,000 of the surgical procedure easily. And I say that knowing what I've seen before. I've seen I've seen $125,000 treatment plans paid by Blue Cross. I know this is not just fodder. This is true stuff. I'll put my hand on a Bible for anybody. I've seen it. And if you talk to any offices who are doing medical billing, they may be hesitant to tell you, but yeah, I've had an $80,000 treatment plan paid by Blue Cross, or yeah, I've had a $100,000 treatment plan. One of the things, though, I never want to leave out is patient comes to you with a sleep grinding problem. You have to treatment plan that as the primary, because if you leave that one primary off your treatment plan, then you're not treating the patient for what they were originally sent for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So are you like advising dentists and patients on these exact things?
I am. I'm training offices to do it.
Good.
But again, it's not for everybody. That's why one of my major parts of my training is screening the right patients, because patients got to have Blue Cross. They got to have $15,000 in cash.
Wow.
And pretty much be prepared to pay for the whole treatment and get reimbursed for 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
And the patient has to have all the medical, can't have any comorbidities, et cetera, et cetera. So you really gotta whittle those patients down in a funnel. And that's what I teach.
Yeah.
That's what I try to train is you have to really make sure that you screen the right patients. And that's the thing. Like I said, a mouth guard for a patient who comes in with sleep rucks,
Yep.
you're addressing the primary referral in full. Not to mention if you do implants, if you do 16 implants, grafts and everything else, as long as you treatment plan that mouth guard at the end, then you've met the criteria for what the patient was sent to you for. And again, medical pays for any DME. So mouth guards, surgical guides, all that stuff that's provided through lab is covered by medical, because to them it's a DME, meaning it's a piece of medical equipment and supplies that's required for the treatment.
I guess it's better than paying for everything out of pocket.
Oh yeah, for sure.
100%, and that's the great thing about it. But again, medical billing is not the only part of what I do, but it's a lot of what I do, because not only help doctors, but I help patients submit their own claims as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I've learned. But again, I'll only do Blue Cross PPOs, because when I was doing other providers, and I won't name them, but when I was doing other providers, man, it was first of all, I knew immediately that HMOs were the worst.
Yeah.
HMOs do not pay, or if they do pay, it takes you a long time to get paid from them. And when I say long, I mean like 10 months long. And so at 12 months, the pre-auth expires and they don't have to pay anything. So
yes, they can just keep pushing it out.
If they can keep pushing it out, exactly, they can get out of paying it altogether. Now you can still appeal and get the pre-auth extended, but most people don't know that. So when I was doing the other carriers, including Medicare, I found that if the doctor didn't do something right on the intake, typically Medicare would deny the claim. And so many patients who I tried Medicare with, and I always told them up front, nothing's guaranteed. I'll try, we'll do it as long as we have the documentation, it should work. But if the documentation left something out of the intake process, then oftentimes Medicare and other carriers would not meet that. So that's where I said, hey, look, I'm just going to draw the line with PPOs. And when I'm training offices, I'm just going to say, look, do the exams only. Don't get into comprehensive treatment planning, billing for that until you know your providers that you're working with. And the best way to get to know them is to do the exams for the patient. Because once you do the exam and get paid for it, you know a lot of stuff about that payer, about that PPO payer.
Yep.
You've come a long way from selling cotton swabs to medical insurance. Wow.
Yeah, and I could still get a good deal on cotton swabs right now if I wanted to. But that being said, we filled an hour fast, Elvis. I'm sorry.
It was great.
I went down some rabbit holes. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
Actually, we thought it was super interesting.
I just want to touch real fast on your All on 4 Full Arch Dentures Facebook group. That's grown a lot. Why did you start that? What was the drive behind that?
Mike Wiseman and myself started that group back in 2019. And so, because it's been 6 years now, Mike had contacted me about getting his full arch reimbursed because he was getting a full arch and we had met just just through, I think I had a group. I still have a Facebook group. It's our sister group called All on for Full Arch Medical Billing and Rehab. And so I've had that group for about 8 years now, and that's where I met Mike. And Mike found that there were no groups that where you could go and either not be completely solicited. He started the group with the intention that I would help him fill in the medical billing side of it, but just because of my background in 3D dentistry and working with oral surgeons, he found that he would be a great resource for that. Mm-hmm. And that was where it started, and it just started growing. It's still growing today. It's crazy. Now, our feed says we have 6,800, but I know we have about 11,000 people, and about 3,000 are just people who are not active. They've not engaged in like years. And so we've got 68 active, but I know we got about 3,000 who are not active. But a lot of those people who are not active, they see the feed and they see a lot of what I post. And a lot of what I post is for both dentists and or all on four providers and patients. I try to make it so that if a doctor wants to help a patient who has a question, I leave that forum open for that to happen. Or I try to fill in any blanks where a patient needs help. But we also refer patients to doctors. We've got a long list of doctors who we refer to.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
And these are doctors I've screened who are nice people, affordable, not hood scammers, not used car salespeople. They're good people, and they offer our group a significant discount for full arch packages.
I think that's super important that you're a resource for them to be able to do that. And you've already screened the doctors, and so you know that they're good.
Yeah, and the best way to screen a doctor is to send a patient and see what happens, right? I mean, you can know them.
Pretty much.
You can know them all you want, but until the patient comes out. And all the places I've sent patients to, they come out so happy, so satisfied. They got a better deal anywhere they could go in the country or out of, with the benefit of not worrying about if something fails, they can't go back to somebody. Because in the U.S., if you do a full mouth rehab, you're on the hook for 2 years. Many patients don't know that, and so that's the one thing that I often try to share is that if you don't get it, if a doctor doesn't get it right, they have to get it right. Then they have to get it right. They have to make it right.
Oh yeah.
Because just like anything else, there's a consumer background to it that you have to watch out for. There's an oversight for consumerism for that. And again, they've got 2 years to make it right. Most doctors, though, who are doing the printing and doing their digital workflow and everything, the great thing about that is everything is spot on. You know exactly how it's going to fit before you even place it. You know exactly what it's going to. You know exactly what it's going to look like. You know what the fit and function is going to be. You know everything you need to know that you didn't have the access to, say, even 10 years ago.
For sure. Chris, we got to cut you off, man.
Yeah, I love it.
Hour. Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Yeah, that flew by.
It was fun.
That was fantastic, and I learned so much. Thank you.
Yeah, medical billing for dental. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way to give that 40% of the market a chance to get the dentistry they need, where they wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep. Bingo.
Chris, I love it, man. We wish you the best of luck on getting your knee back up and running.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Very much so. Yeah, thank you so much. And
thank you. Good luck to you.
Yeah, we might have to revisit some of your other ideas.
I would love that. Let's keep in touch, and I'll see you on.
We can probably do another episode with you, my friend.
Anytime we can talk more. And again, I'd love to see you around Facebook sharing any of your stuff, because you post a lot of wonderful cases, and you also post a lot of stuff about digital, which I really love.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you real soon.
All right, thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And a huge thanks to Mark and Chris for coming on our podcast. And everybody out there, if you are looking for a lab or a lab that's looking for employees, go to WINWINGO.com.
It's that easy.
It's like win-win, everybody wins. I love it.
Everybody wins, and you go.
Yeah.
.com.
So, yeah, go there to see how amazing Mark has set up this for our industry. And if you happen to be at Lab Day West, sorry guys, we're not there, and we really wish we should, but it's been a very, very busy last 4 months.
Travel.
But go find his booth and learn more. And thank you, Chris, also for telling us that even though dental insurance isn't the greatest, which we all know, some of the population can get the full arch care that they deserve with a little help from medical insurance. Good, great stories.
All right, everybody. That's all we got for you. We hope you had a happy Mother's Day.
We really do, sincerely. To all the mothers out there, way to go. Thank you for being moms. Hopefully you'll make some future technicians. And if so, love you all.
Love it. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye. Oh, do you not copy paste?
No, I don't copy paste. What do I look like?
The views and opinions expressed on the Voices from the Bench podcast are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the host or Voices from the Bench, LLC.